And welcome back, Hoopheads, to another adventure of In the Lounge with myself, Phil Boileau, Marc Griffin, Justin Rowan. We're talking basketball, whatever happened this week. A lot of stories, a lot of little innuendos, and a lot of personal interests. Marc, you want to kick it off in something that really maybe piqued your interest this week, and we'll give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, if you were up late last night, you found out that Draymond Green doesn't like other men touching his head. Justin, I really want to know what you think about that.
Well, it's like the next version of Chris Paul. I think it's Chris Paul that didn't like people touching his head. I mean, he's a little guy. It was kind of funny to see him and O.J. Mayo go face to face because they're basically the same height.
Yeah.
It's amazing what Draymond Green can do, considering the fact he's about 6'5", 6'6" in shoes. The whole Warrior team is sensitive. It's part of who they are. It's really funny, but in their minds, whether it's real or not, they have to think that everybody hates them, everybody's counting them out, and that's what fuels their team. So Draymond Green being really sensitive about something like that doesn't surprise me. That is who he is. Little man syndrome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Phil. No, I was. Go, Phil. Wow, it's like when you hit someone on the sidewalk and you don't know which person to pass.
Super Canadian way to do it as well. Maybe I'll just take over here though. But like, is this possibly the way you deal with the Warriors then? Like getting in their heads because they seem a bit soft at this point?
Well, I don't think they're soft. I think that sensitivity is there even when they're playing well. I think that's what fuels them playing well. The key is playing slow, and we've seen bad teams. The Bucks are a bad team, don't get me wrong. I saw a lot of Warriors fans on Twitter trying to build them up, being like, oh, if they always played like this. No, the Warriors were just playing poorly. If you slow it down, you limit possessions, you keep it in the half court, and you out-rebound them, which is everything Milwaukee did, then you have a chance. If you play small ball, you can be a better team like Indiana, and you're going to get blown the hell out. You just can't beat them at their game.
Yeah, I got to mention about this melee after the game. A couple of quick things. Steph kind of stayed completely away from it. Clay was jawing from way in the background. And a name that needs to be mentioned, I think this is really important. I don't know if this is happening if Steve Kerr is around. I think he really holds this team together, and I think they're just kind of going off onto their own with the parents away. You know, I like Luke Walton a lot, but I see just Draymond, you know how much he's jawing lately with the refs and not getting technicals? I don't think he's doing this as much if Steve's around.
I don't know. That's kind of who he is. He almost has a bit of the LeBron James pass when it comes to technicals. I mean, LeBron is constantly demonstrative and stuff whenever he feels a call isn't going his way. That's just who Draymond is. And now that they have a championship, he's going to get even more leeway when it comes to stuff like that. His trash talking, his how upset he is, that's what fuels his game. And you saw him have a major run in the fourth quarter that helped win the game for the Warriors. I don't think that happens if he's not pissed off out of his mind.
Yeah, he needs that chip on his shoulder. I agree.
Is it possible that he's kind of like the new age Rasheed Wallace that way when he went to Detroit and just taking up all these technicals, but he just brings, you know, that needed aspect and that energy to the game?
He's like a much better Bill Laimbeer. He's actually got skill sets.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Well, speaking of skill sets, there's one guy who, like 3 years ago, I don't think anyone would have really questioned this guy, but we're seeing how now, just in passing, because I know we've mentioned his name before, but Ty Lawson just got a 2-game suspension, and they're finally looking to trade him. Do you think he's finally worn out his welcome there?
Well, for me, the warning sign was, I think it was 2 months ago, when he was saying how he was put into the substance abuse program and it wasn't doing much for him, and that he didn't really need to be part of it and it wasn't for him. I just think his mindset's in the wrong place right now, and I think he probably just has to step away from the game. He's not very tradable. He was playing like trash for the last couple of months, to be honest. I maybe go to the D-League, you know, or just step away from the game for a while.
Yeah, no kidding. And Justin, what's popped up in the NBA news this week that's kind of piqued your interest?
Well, just to finish the point there on Ty Lawson, if we are looking for fits, the Milwaukee Bucks would be a good fit with their lack of point guard play, even though Michael CarterWilliams did play well last night. That's a destination I can see, and I can see a team like the Knicks, who have been better than anyone expected.
But and they've been wanting to change in that backcourt, and they've been pretty open about that.
Exactly. So maybe a team like that gives him a chance, but unless he gets his head on straight, and substance abuse is never something to really joke about or anything like that, but it's a very serious matter that goes beyond basketball. But I can see the Knicks kind of taking a chance on him, and the Bucks too, because you got Jason Kidd who had substance abuse and DUI problems. Maybe he can be a bit of a mentor there for him. Outside of that. The never-ending saga of when will Kyrie Irving return continued. Reports that he was going to play against the Thunder. He's been cleared to play for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. The team was holding him out, apparently mad at the organization for keeping him out. Maybe he just didn't want to make his start against Russell Westbrook on Thursday, so he's got Philly on Sunday. I think he comes back then, but hopefully he comes back because that's kind of the marquee matchup on Christmas Day, and I think everybody would benefit from full rosters from those teams.
So Justin, we have a new Dr. J in the league. Iman Shumpert delivered his child in the bathroom the other day. How are Cavs fans responding to this?
I don't think it surprised anybody. It was a unique story, but Iman's kind of the jack of all trades. He's a unique character. He's an absolutely great guy. You won't hear anybody say anything bad about Iman. He's a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys have seen, but he's got a bit of a rap career going on too. Now he's a bit of a jack of all trades, so I guess you can add Dr. Shump to that. The only thing I found weird, Iman, I guess, is a girl's name. There are quite a few, even female models, Iman, out there. But the fact that his daughter is named Iman Shumpert Jr., the junior is what throws me off. The cross-gender junior. And I've never met a female junior, so that is the most fun and kind of unique part of the story to me, at least. I got a laugh out of that.
I got nothing there. I've never heard of that.
Well, I just hope she gets the same hairstyle going forward until she learns to make her own decisions. That way, they both just kind of rock it. Hey, another news. We're speaking about maybe making his debut being Kyrie Irving gets the 76ers. 76ers hiring Mike D'Antoni as an assistant coach, bringing in Mr. Colangelo to help with the front office stuff there. So they're bringing a lot of talent in the front office and in management and all them. Still don't have a lot of talent going on the playing side of things. Where do you see, especially considering, like, it was a bit strange for me seeing an assistant coach like Mike D'Antoni and a team that has mainly large centers.
Yeah, I mean, for Colangelo, I mean, obviously they have a relationship together. It's associate coach, I believe they brought him in as, so it's kind of that in-between assistant and head coach. I mean, he's obviously a power player. He's a big name in the industry. He's been out of the game for a couple of years. I wonder if the current Sixers coach is going to feel a bit insecure about this. I don't know about the fit. I don't even know if they actually know each other. So let's see if they gel. And obviously, D'Antoni is going to have to work within this system. And we saw that when he left Phoenix and wasn't exactly working with his ideal set of players, things don't go well for him. So we'll wait and see.
I honestly don't really like the hire a lot. I guess it adds some credibility to a team that I don't think there's any denying that they've lacked credibility over the past few years. But, I mean, when I looked at Brent Brown's system in Philly, I saw a team that was executing good offensive plays and had good defensive schemes, but didn't have players capable of executing it. Mike D'Antoni, like you said, he did kind of, he was underwhelming with the Lakers. And I think unless if you have solid point guard play, I don't know really how much you can attribute to Mike D'Antoni. Steve Nash in Dallas was a top 3 player in terms of offensive efficiency. Like, he was fantastic before D'Antoni. So how much do you really attribute the 7-second or less Suns to D'Antoni when Nash was essentially the floor general? He was like Peyton Manning out there calling plays. So I'm not a big fan of the hire, and especially when you consider that Philly doesn't have any point guards, I'm not sure that this is going to be kind of the most fruitful relationship possible.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of good relationships, I want to take it to the other side of the pond there, because there's one thing that's been kind of, you know, Golden State's been getting all this hoopla, but we're looking at San Antonio's team that it's won their last 5 games, 9-1 their last 10. Sure, they're not the 26-1 Golden State Warriors, but Kawhi Leonard's been sneaking up into that potential MVP race, or at least super all-star kind of conversation. Where the Spurs been in your guys' eyes? Because to me, they're kind of playing under the shadow of the Warriors, which is kind of like playing into their hand with the type of team they are.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I watched their game last night, and I think because the streak ended for the Warriors, the Spurs have kind of been more in the limelight lately. And what's really stood out to me beyond Kawhi's tremendous growth slowly over the last few years is that LaMarcus, in the last couple of weeks, has really started to blend into the system, making the extra pass and really starting to enjoy himself out there, and that's scary. Once that starts working, I mean, they're a legitimate contender. They are, and I think Golden State should be looking over the shoulder right now.
Yeah, I think people are really kind of sleeping on the Spurs again, and part of that's due to the boring label that they fairly or unfairly have been slapped with. But honestly, they've had more 20-point blowouts in favor of them than the Warriors or anybody in the league. You're talking about the best defense statistically since the three-point line was introduced. And you're talking about a team that, like I said earlier, the way to beat the Warriors is to kind of go slow, and they slow things down. And they haven't changed their offense as much as people think. There still is all that ball movement. They've implemented LaMarcus pretty seamlessly. His individual numbers are down, but it's benefiting the team. When you really look at the Warriors' schedule, they don't have a ton of signature wins, and I'm not discrediting the Warriors. You play who's in front of you, but we don't know how these teams are going to match up. There's a very good chance that, as good as the Warriors have been, the Spurs might be the team representing the West in the finals. That would not surprise me in the slightest.
No, I wouldn't be surprised with that at all. And just speaking of LaMarcus Aldridge, just a little bit of statistical context of this. In the last 5 games, he's been 19 points, 8.8 rebounds, and shooting close to 57%, which you would think, compared to his days in Portland, isn't great. But when you realize he's only playing 28.6 minutes a game to do this, that's pretty impressive. So, I mean, this whole team, as is the Spurs way, is keeping those minutes down and in the playoffs. And that's one thing, maybe it makes a difference, right? The Warriors aren't really doing that as much. Like their big guns have to play big minutes game in and game out. I mean, like if Steph Curry is not playing big minutes on that team, I don't have a lot of faith in them taking a lot of games.
Yeah, and that's the biggest difference. Mark, you alluded to this earlier, how different they'd play with Steve Kerr. Kerr really managed minutes well, and now you're seeing Steph Curry and those guys playing huge minutes. And I think a lot of that was to go for that streak. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case if Kerr's there. I think as someone that's been on a lot of veteran teams, that has been on the Bulls, that has won championships with the Spurs as well, I think he would really rest these guys more than they are currently getting. And I mean, not to say that you don't hope for injuries or anything like that, but Steph Curry has had issues in the past staying healthy, and maybe not in the past couple of years, but with an increased load. And also Draymond Green's battle back spasms at time as well. You just wonder if they continue with this increased load, if maybe at some point these guys start missing a couple games to rest. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it could go many ways. And Mark, I know all week you've been chomping at the bit. What else kind of stood out this week to you that made you smile or kind of scratch your head?
Well, here's one for you. Rajon Rondo and Bill Kennedy. This one, it's a real head scratcher. It was a game in Mexico City about almost a month back, and they had to bring in an audiologist to listen to the recording. And basically, a gay slur by Rajon Rondo, which he first dismissed, and then basically Bill Kennedy actually came out of the closet and announced that he was gay, the second official in NBA history, and then Rondo went on Twitter and more or less apologized by tweet, and then people said it wasn't a full apology, and then he came back and gave another tweet apologizing, and apparently he's never even to this moment, so this has been going on for a week now, he actually hasn't spoken to Bill Kennedy. Vlade Divac has spoken to Bill Kennedy on his behalf. It speaks to an immaturity on the part of Rondo, and a great strength of Bill Kennedy, willingness to come out of the open in this situation, but kind of a black mark on the league so far this season.
Yeah, it really is, and after both Kobe Bryant and Joakim Noah got in trouble for saying the same thing, I believe, to fans, the same term at least, there was quite a bit of awareness brought out, and I think you saw very sincere apologies from both of those guys, and I think it was a moment of growth, and you see some maturity from the league as a result of that. Rondo's the complete opposite. He hasn't apologized. He said that he didn't mean to hurt anybody, but when you direct that term directly at him and make sure that he knows, and it was well known, even though he wasn't out of the closet to the public, it was well known around league circles that he was in fact homosexual. So it's another example of Rajon Rondo being an idiot and getting in his own way. He was a large part of why the Celtics broke up. Ray Allen wanted nothing to do with him. Doc Rivers apparently got sick of Rondo as well. So this is a guy that, even though he puts up big assist numbers or whatever, and he can put up ridiculous lines, this isn't somebody that necessarily I would want on my team. I've always been consistent in saying I think he's one of the more selfish players in the league. Even with those assist totals, he's someone that will pass up the right play in order to get the pass that's going to get him an assist. That it's the guy cutting the basket or the open jumper when he's got an open layup. He wants those assist numbers. So this is a guy that I think on and off the court is selfish and immature, and I wouldn't want him on my team.
I think that's really interesting, and I think that's kind of an idea that's not spoken enough, of guys kind of going for their numbers. Like people always look at it with rebounds and maybe points and such, but assists, are you forcing in that play that that next guy is going to touch the rock, is going to shoot it, giving you the highest chance of the assist, or are you making that Spursian play where you're actually making the pass that needs one extra pass, but it is the right basketball play? Quite astute on your side. Now, keeping it there, Justin, with some other guys who maybe are wearing out a welcome. Dwight Howard's been having some issues, and we've been talking about this off the air. Maybe linked to Hassan Whiteside and some stories around there, just to bring everyone up to speed. What's the general crux of that idea?
Well, I mean, Dwight Howard has the option to opt out at the end of this season, meaning that he would be a free agent. And he's not happy. He's essentially the sixth option on offense there in Houston, and they're not giving him the pick-and-roll touches that he excels in. And a result of that, if you're risking losing Dwight for nothing, obviously there's some talk that the Rockets are exploring trade options. Now, Dwight did, of course, deny that. He did say he hasn't spoken to anyone and hasn't demanded anything, although it's funny, if you look at his quote, is word for word, it's the same two sentences, word for word, that he said in Orlando before he got moved out of there. So who knows with Dwight? He doesn't kind of have the benefit of doubt from people around the league anymore. And you know what? I think someone for a low price, it would be a worthwhile risk. But I wouldn't move major assets to get Dwight Howard, especially when he can opt out, because you're talking about someone that's 6'9" and has back problems. He's made up for his lack of size with athleticism and ridiculously long arms. I think as that athleticism wanes, he's going to age a lot quicker than some of the bigger centers around the league, like let's say a Marc Gasol.
Yeah, and that's really interesting, because another thing I was hearing is that he's actually tired of being second fiddle. People saying James Harden is the guy there. And speaking of your stats before, James Harden just doesn't pass him the ball. It's a super low. It's like he's the sixth, most sixth highest percentage guy that he passes the rock to, and there's some questionable names even between that. Mark, do you think Dwight Howard can be the man? Because I mean, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of faith anymore. Like, is it possible that that hope over reality is giving him, some false dreams here? Because if he wants to be the man on a team, I'm not sure if I see that team winning.
Yeah, first of all, I feel bad for Bickerstaff being in that situation. No, as Justin alluded to back in the day with Stan Van Gundy, I think Dwight, he had immense skills at one time that like we've been saying have been deteriorating, and mentally it seems like he's never been the most mature player in the league, and very ego-driven in terms of how he plays the game. I don't think he has that ability to mature anymore and be the man both in the locker room and on the court. And I think he's slowly starting to see that he's not what he used to be, and I think he's kind of grasping at straws right now and may force his way out, which is a shame. I mean, because he's with some talented guys, and I think him trying to lead a team on his own probably be disastrous as well.
No, for sure. And Justin, just jump topics there. Was there another thing kind of poking out there that was newsworthy this week?
Not really that I can think of. The Dwight Howard thing is interesting, and it also the flip side of that, of course, is Hassan Whiteside.
Mm-hmm.
The Miami Heat have been rumored to be looking for options there. Pat Riley has denied that, but again, who knows? Hassan Whiteside's an interesting case because you got a guy who's turning 27. You don't have his birth rights. So for those that don't know, when you have a player on your team for a certain amount of years, it allows you to offer a fifth year in contract negotiations. That's why a lot of players will stay with the team that drafted them, because they have those bird rights. And if you traded someone, the team that traded for that player would also have that advantage. Hassan Whiteside, because he was just picked up last season, doesn't have that. So there really isn't a lot of benefit for trading to Hassan when 2/3 of the league is going to have max cap space to make a big offer at him. So the Heat are kind of stuck in a weird situation where, do they want to pay this guy $100 million? They're not sure about that. A lot of reports say they don't want to give him that max money, that it'll limit them too much. Because, I mean, as good as he is, you are talking about someone that's 27. This isn't a young, tall prospect here. This is someone that's currently in his prime. So it's a really, really unique situation where, as good as he is, he might not have a lot of trade value. So maybe they pair him with a Justice Winslow in a kind of mega deal, which is something that's been rumored. But that's a situation that I just really want to keep my eye on to see what ends up happening.
There could be a lot of movement in the offseason. Hey, if there's a team that needs a center, I mean, the 76ers seem to be collecting them, so maybe, and they have some cap space, so maybe they could throw some max deal just to cloud the waters even more. Mark, were there some last thoughts you were itching to get off your chest there?
Yeah, just one. Detroit's doing something interesting. Brandon Jennings has agreed to go down to the D-League to work on his Achilles tendon recovery, which is kind of, it's kind of an outside the box, more of a baseball thing to do. And I can see different teams around the league kind of following this trend. I can see Masai Ujiri using the Raptors 905 D-League team to do things like this in the future. So I know a few teams like the Spurs is very close to their D-League affiliate. OKC is the same way. I see this as a growing trend, seeing stars or role players going down the D-League to rehab and come back.
And that's appointment television to me. Brandon Jennings in the D-League. Is he going to average 80 shots a night? I need to see that, because that's going to be
the green light special down there.
Yeah, that's going to be really special. And you know what? You're seeing more and more teams use the D-League, and I think that's great. I don't think it's going to be a long time before we see 30 D-League teams, so an affiliate for every NBA team. And guys like Corey Joseph can be credited as trailblazers, as people that have used the D-League to better their NBA career and are reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, and on a side note, there's an article in the USA Today this week about the coach of the Maine Claws. I forget his name, but he's from a town in Prince Edward Island, Canada, a town of 300 people, and he worked his way up there, and it's worth checking out. D-League is an interesting place where people can get their start and really jump to the league.
No, absolutely. And when we're talking about the Pistons, I'm not actually surprised because we're looking at the standings as they are right now, and we're recording this. They're actually in 8th spot, 16-12. Every team that's in the playoffs in the East is above 500. It's kind of this weird.
That's
spot.
insane. Yeah.
And two teams that are not. They've actually bumped the Detroit Pistons and Orlando Magic, who we were kind of talking about in our preview as being a potentially good team if all the kind of cards fall into place, have bumped out the Atlanta Hawks and Boston Celtics so far.
And Washington Wizards.
And Washington Wizards. And
would be in playoffs and high.
And technically, if you were someone like me making the grave mistake of thinking Milwaukee was going to be better than they actually are, we can count them in the conversation as well. But at the same time, this is how the NBA is. It's crazy. It's all over the place. There's stuff that you don't expect, and that's what makes it fun. So listen, guys, I want to thank you again for another meetup here for In the Lounge with myself, Phil Boileau, Marc Griffin, Justin Rowan. Feel free to contact any of us and our social media entities, which we'll have listed in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on SoundCloud or anything in between. I want to thank you for joining, and remember, hoopslounge.com for everything basketball and in between. Have a great day, guys.